Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to configure and maintain a vCloud Air connection. Some of the topics that we are going to cover are VMware vCloud Air, which is VMware's public cloud offering. vCloud Director is the product on which vCloud Air is based. We will also look at implementing and configuring the vCloud connector server and the nodes, because that's how one connects the on-premise data center to the cloud data center. Once we have that, we have created what we call a hybrid cloud, and we will perform a few operations. And then we will look at something very interesting, which is configuring a virtual private network connection between nodes set up on vCloud Air. So we will configure a connection between the Virginia vCloud Air site and the German vCloud Air site. So after logging in into my VMware vCloud Air account, this is the home page that I come up with. So you have to contact VMware to obtain a vCloud Air account. There are different kinds of possibilities there. There's a virtual private cloud, a dedicated cloud, and the virtual private cloud on demand, which is what I have here. I have two different service IDs. I use them to keep identities separated and billing separated for my customers. This is the menu, drop-down menu, basically account type activities. The offline data transfer service is when you have an extremely large set of files for your virtual machine. You can back it up on media, and the media can then be sent over to VMware, who would then load it up on vCloud Air for you. The health status shows you the health of the entire VMware vCloud Air offering. In the United States, you have these regions, the services they offer, everything seems to be normal. In Europe, they're in Germany, and in the UK, they're in Japan, and they have sites in Australia as well. So it gives you an idea as to where exactly you might want to set up your sites, because in the beginning you have that opportunity to do so. You can select the actual region in which to create your virtual machines or your virtual data centers. So let's go into one of my service accounts. And what it is doing is it's loading up my virtual data centers that I have created in the Germany region of vCloud Air. This should not take too long. Here we go. So in the German region of vCloud Air, I have a virtual data center. VDC1 is set up when you actually decide to use a certain region. First thing is, of course, an organization. An organization is created when you have an account created in vCloud Air. Then below the organization, you can create multiple virtual data centers, either in one region or in multiple regions. And the list of drop-down regions are, for example, out here: Australia, Germany, Japan, the UK, US, and so on. So what we're looking at right now is, of course, Germany, where I have a virtual machine that's been created. Okay, and it's powered on. You can see from the symbol up here. Nothing very interesting up here, all pretty conventional VMware, vSphere types of activities. I look at the actions, power off, suspend. You can edit a few things up there, metadata. I can open in console. I can open this in vCloud Director, which we will do in just a minute. You can also create snapshots as well. Before we go into vCloud Director, I want to show you what happens when you click this. So this is the vCloud Director API endpoint. So when I click on this, there are two things that come up. One is the API URL for this region, and then there's this organization name. So as I said before, the organization is the topmost, it's the root of your folder, so to speak, of the entities that you have in vCloud Air in Germany in this case. So under this organization, my VDCs are created. The VDC is the virtual data center, and as part of the virtual data center, I have my gateways and my networks and my virtual machines that are hooked up to those networks. So just keep this in mind, because when we set up vCloud connector, node, and server, we are going to require some of these items, and we can obtain them from here. Okay, so I'm going to close this. You have the ability to create a new virtual data center. So here we go. Just by clicking on that plus sign, this comes up. I give it a name. And then there's, of course, how you pay for it and so on. Let's not worry about that at this point in time. And as you can see, just select VPC subscription. 50 virtual machines, 10 gig of virtual CPU, 2 terabytes of standard and accelerated, and So I can create basically 4 virtual data centers are allowed to be created by me in this region for my type of account. I'm using one obviously which is VDC1, which is set up for me. So I'm going to X out of that. Few other things. The resource usage, of course, nothing much going in. There's nothing much happening up here. These are the prices and so on, and the costs. The virtual machines we already saw. The gateways are in between the public network and your inside network. The public network or the public IP is 92.246 in this case. I always do that. And I can actually then manage this in vCloud Direct as you see up here. And then before we go there, let's look at networks as well. The networks are on the private side of the gateway. So your public address, as we saw before, was 92.246.246.233, and then the IP range on the backside is 192.168.109.2 up to .253, and the IP that they've assigned for the interface into the gateway is 109.1. So that's your default gateway IP for this address range for this network. Okay, you have the ability to create a new network as well, which obviously means that you can assign your own range of IP addresses. So we are in the Germany VMware vCloud Air site, and it's time to look at the gateway in vCloud Director to get familiar with some of the user interface options that are available to us. So this is what it looks like. We are in the Germany region. If we just wait a minute, it's going to show us our gateway. Here it comes. So I click on this gateway, then I right click and I go into Edge Gateway Services. Now when I click on Edge Gateway Services, it'll show me the various services that can be configured on this Edge Gateway, ranging from DHCP to network address translation, both source and destination NAT. The firewall, I can enable it or I can turn it off. I have turned it off right now. If I enable it, I can have the a rule ID, a source destination based on protocol, and then the action whether it you allow it or not. Static routing if it's really needed. The load balancer, again pretty conventional with the pool servers and virtual servers. Pool servers are your physical servers, and then you create a virtual server, virtual IP, and then you back it up with the pool servers. We will be focusing a lot on the virtual private network. As you can see, we are in Germany right now, and we have a network or a VPN that's been created. It's enabled and it has green status. It's connected to the Virginia data center, but we'll get to that when we look at the VPN. So I'm going to cancel out of this, and we're going to take a look at our vCloud connector node and the vCloud connector servers. I'm now here in the vSphere web client. Just look at that one more time. It's version 6, as you can see here, and I'm running Windows 10 version 11 for Internet Explorer. Cancel out of that. When I look at the options available to me here, the only thing that talks about a hybrid cloud is this icon, Hybrid Cloud Manager, and of course there's this one that looks like a download. Well, that's what I actually did. There's a new product called Hybrid Cloud Manager. It's in version 1.0, which I downloaded, and it allows me to manage vCloud Air instances and sites in very sophisticated ways. However, it requires a very high level of subscription in vCloud Air, so I'm unable to do that, although I have downloaded that. So the point I want to make is that apart from this Hybrid Cloud Manager, there's nothing to be seen here in terms of vCloud connector. And the reason is that the vCloud connector is not supported by the vSphere web client. The vCloud connector is supported by the vSphere classic client, and that is where we are going to go next. So here we are at the vSphere classic client. As you can see, if I click on help and check it, you can see it's vSphere client version 6, and it's looking at VMware vCenter Server version 6 as well. And here in Solutions and Applications, you can see that there's an icon for vCloud connector. So the question first is, how did I get this solution implemented and available in the vSphere client? And for that, I had to install the vCloud connector node virtual appliance and the vCloud connector server virtual appliance. In both cases, these are available as OVFs from VMware. I downloaded them, went through the standard install process for OVFs, and once they were installed, I then logged in to their administration consoles at port 5480, which is very conventional for VMware virtual appliances. So that's where we are headed next, to understand how we actually got the vCloud connector icon here in the solutions and applications area of the vSphere classic client. So we are now in the administrative console for vCloud connector node. Just a word about vCloud connector node before we go forward. A vCloud connector node is basically a proxy or the interface, depending on which way you want to look at it, to a given vSphere implementation or a vCloud director implementation. There is a one-to-one correspondence between a node and a cloud, like a vSphere cloud or a vCloud director cloud. Now, on the premises that I'm looking at right now, I have a vSphere environment, as you know, and the vSphere environment is controlled by a vCenter at 192.168.0.220. So I have configured this node to basically talk to a cloud type of vSphere, which is being managed by a vCenter at 192.168.0.220. On the other side, on the VMware vCloud Air side, those are vCloud director clouds, and what VMware has done is they've installed what they call multi-tenant node that are available to all users of the cloud. And the idea is that that one node will support all tenants, and to get to that you need to have an IP of the type which looks something like this, HTTPS vCloud IP cloud. Okay, so at this point in time I only have to set up the node for my on-premise vSphere cloud. I do not have to worry about the other VMware based clouds. Let's look at system. So it's a vCloud connector node. There's a default gateway for it. There's a DNS service defined for it, and I have a static IP address of 173. The update would obviously look at looking to see if there are any new updates to the software. This address, again, I can make changes to that. The DNS server, the default gateway, I can even change the host name. Not going to do that right now. And then, of course, the main tab, which basically registers this node to a cloud. In this case, this node is registered to a vSphere cloud, which is being managed by vCenter 192.168.0.220. We now switch gears and look at the vCloud connector server. And this is the vCloud connector server. Once again, I am at port 5480, so I'm on the administrative console. So vCloud connector server. This is the network. It has a default gateway. There's a DNS server there, and there is its static IP address. Update is for the software, of course. Look at address. I can change that. I can change DNS servers. We're not going to do that. Not using a proxy, so we don't have to worry about proxy services here. When I look at nodes, you can see there's a whole bunch of nodes that this vCloud connector server knows about. Before we go there, there's one step to be taken, which is from this tab. So what we have to do is we have to register this vCloud connector server to our local cloud, just like we did before. And that's done by clicking on vSphere client. And as you can see, when I click on that, this server is registered with 192.168.0.220. I don't want to obviously change that. But what the process I went through when I did this was, I took the local IP address of this vCloud connector server, and then I keyed in my vCenter server IP and the vCenter username password, administrative passwords, basically, which let me in, and then I registered it. I clicked the register button. So right now I don't want to unregister or update registration. But think of what has happened so far. We took the vCloud connector node and associated it with a cloud managed by this same vCenter at 192.168.0.220. Then we took the vCloud connector server and also associated it with that same vCenter, which is at 192.168.0.220. Now when we click on nodes, this server knows about that node which is connected to that vCenter, and that node is node site1 at the vCenter address of 192.168.0.220. Now, You can see that we have other sites here as well. How did we actually set up these nodes? Well, I had said earlier that vCloud Air actually provides a node URL for each one of their sites. So site Germany, for example, has this URL, and site Virginia has this URL. Now, how did I know this? Well, the best way to do it is to either call VMware support, vCloud Air support, and obtain this URL, the node URL. But this multi-tenant node URL is also available in vCloud Air documentation, which is where I obtained it from. I actually Googled it. And let's take a quick look at what I have. So this is the information that I found in the vCloud Air documentation. For the various data centers, you have the multi-tenant node details. I didn't use the IP address. I just basically, because my DNS is working quite well, I basically used these, the one for Virginia, which is this one, and the one for Germany, which is out here as well. So that's how I obtained the node URLs for the vCloud connector server. Now, once I have that node URL, let's see how we can register a node. Need to give it a display name, and then of course the node URL which we just picked up. Apart from that, the cloud credentials will have to be different because the cloud type is now vCloud Director, because we are talking to a site that is based on vCloud Director. We're talking to a remote vCloud Air site. And of course the VCD name, the vCloud Director organization name. This is, as I showed you earlier, is available on the VMware vCloud Air site. There's an icon on the right hand side. When you click on that, you are able to get a long address, which is a UUID for your org name. That's what has to be keyed in here. And as far as the usernames and passwords, these are basically your vCloud Air usernames and passwords, because you are actually connecting now to the cloud. Click register, and it takes only a couple of seconds or less, and your status then comes up. So I basically have, at this point in time, there's a local content library, and we looked at content libraries earlier. But then the three clouds are the node site 1, that's my local vSphere cloud, and it says here VMware vCenter server. And then we have the two vCloud Air sites, which are based on vCloud Director, so they say vCloud Director. So having looked at this, let's now go back into the web client and once again realize that there is nothing here that around vCloud connector, and what we have to do is to get to the classic client, and from there we will see how we can perform different operations on vCloud Air sites and vCloud Air machines. We are now at the vSphere classic client. I click on vCloud connector icon, and as you can see here, I have three clouds in here. There is my local cloud or on-premise node site 1. I'm connected to site Germany and to site Virginia because these were available, if you recall, in the vCloud connector nodes section that we just looked at, and they were up and running. Now, if I need to add a cloud, I basically click on cloud, and then I have to click on add. All available clouds have already been added because I have added the three clouds that vCloud connector server knows about. And those clouds are my local cloud, site Germany, and site Virginia. If I click on the twisty, node site 1 has a data center, Pact Publishing. When I click on that, I can look at the virtual machines. Those are the three virtual machines that are running up there. There are no vApps because there are no vSphere apps, and I have no templates here. I then look at site Germany. When I look at site Germany, the situation is a little bit different. I click on the VDC, or the virtual data center that's in Germany. I click on virtual machines, and you know that I have these two virtual machines running in that VDC. vApps, there are also two vApps corresponding to each one of those virtual machines, and this is because these are vCloud Director vApps. These are different from vSphere vApps. Every virtual machine or sets of virtual machines and their corresponding networking is encapsulated in a vCloud Director vApp. So when you create a virtual machine in vCloud Air, it is encapsulated into a vCloud Director vApp. It's kind of transparent to us. when I look at templates, there are no data to display there. However, when I look at the public catalog and I look at the templates there, I can see that I have access to the public catalog that VMware had actually provided to us. And I have it visible here on site in my vSphere client environment. So if I select this and I look at the actions, I say deploy. So I'm going to deploy a copy of CentOS 32-bit. I will just add a little extra language to it. I will then select a target VDC, VDC1, network is my default network, and I say next, and I will not power on. So what have I done here? What I have done is that in site Germany, I am now deploying a copy of CentOS 63 in the VDC1 that's available at site Germany. When I click on that and I look at the right hand side, I see that that template is actually being deployed, and I'm controlling Germany right from on premise. So I don't have to be in VMware vCloud Air. I am in my standard vSphere client. Earlier you see that there was an attempt at deploying a template that actually failed. This is sensitive to latency, so just be a little bit certain that your latency to your vCloud Air environment is very low, because it takes a while to transmit all that information over there. Okay, this is our organization in Germany, and that's our default catalog where there is no data to display. Let's look at site Virginia. Same thing. This is my organization in the Virginia site. I have a VDC out there, and I probably have one virtual machine that is stopped, that is there. I could, if I like, power it on, and now it is being powered on in the Virginia data center right from my vSphere client. Get rid of that twisty. Let's look at the content library. The public catalog in site Virginia, I have actually published it. Okay, so it is now available to be subscribed to, and that is why we are able to see all these templates that are actually out there from our content library. Now, I could then take that content library or the catalog that exists out in vCloud Air. I can always make it correct, and if I select a folder up here, I don't really have a folder that's actually set up here, and that's what it'll say. You cannot subscribe to a data center. I have to select a folder. If I created a folder up here, what would basically happen is that there would be synchronization between those templates into the content library, from the public catalog out into the content library, and they would be available locally as well. There's really no need to do that. Those things are available out on VMware vCloud Air, so that's where we're going to leave it. This apparently has been completed. The template has been deployed. Let's look at VDC1 now, and it has not yet been completed. It has status is started. It has not yet been status is started. So the app is actually running, but that is not this template is not visible to us at this point in time still. Okay, click on that and we are back to where we are. We have the ability to import templates or vApps or virtual machines in here. Again, that's really not required for the VCP6 DCV certification, so we're not going to go there at this point in time. But you can see that it's a nice setup, although it uses the classic client, and I know some of us really like the classic client, but certainly the web client works pretty fast nowadays. It's not like in the early days, but it's still unfortunate that vCloud connector server and node are available on the classic client only and not on the web client. I have high hopes for the hybrid cloud connector that will be available, or that is available right now, but I hope that it will allow us to use other types of subscriptions rather than the limited set of subscriptions that it has, or the more advanced level of subscriptions that it requires for its operation. We are now going to look at establishing connectivity between the Germany data center and the Virginia data center using virtual private network, or VPN. We have the gateway on VDC1 in Germany up on the screen at this point in time, and we have to manage it in vCloud Director. So I click on vCloud director. I believe I have this already open up here. There it is. So the gateway, I click on that, I select it, and then I go to Edge Gateway Services. And my configuration services dialogues are coming up here for that gateway. I click on VPN. I've enabled the VPN, and you can see I already have a connection enabled and in green status, operational to Virginia from here in Germany. How is that accomplished? It's actually pretty straightforward. I'm in Germany right now, so this is my local public address of my German gateway. This is the public IP address of the Virginia gateway, the peer. I'm in Germany, so my local network that I want to connect is 192.168.109.0/24, and the network in Virginia, which is behind the gateway in Virginia, is 192.168.110.0. That's what I want to connect to. It's as actually simple as that. Look at the peer settings, and that's what it basically tells me. It flips the local and the peer endpoints. So my local endpoint is in Virginia would be 2392.253.173, just like it says here. So it's kind of flipped because this is the setting that I need to put in Virginia. One important part of it is the shared key. You need to have the key. What I do is I show the key, I copy the key, and then when I go over to the Virginia site, I would then re-enter that or paste that key back in there so that they have the shared key, because that's what is used for initial handshaking. I'm going to close this and click on the edit button. I don't have the ability now, since this is already established, to specify what kind of a VPN it is, but I specified a VPN to a remote network, but you can also have VPNs to within the same organization, which means that you need to have more than one gateway within the same organization. My level of subscription doesn't allow me to have a second gateway in my own organization, so I cannot show you that option, but it works exactly the same way. So the best way for me to do it was to show you between two vCloud Air sites, and that is what I've done. So that's what's called a remote network. So this is my VPN to Virginia. I'm in Germany at this point in time. My local network is my 192.168.109.0 network, and my peer network is my 110.0 network. My local endpoint in Germany is the 92 address. My endpoint in Virginia is the 23 address of the public IP of the gateway. Same thing goes in here. And what I did was I actually copied and pasted the shared key in there as well. So I am going to cancel out of this, and I'm going to cancel out of this, and I am going to now look at my Virginia data center, which is the other end of the VPN. So this is my Virginia site. I have VDC1 there as well. I click on gateway, and I have that one solitary gateway up here whose public address is 2392.253. I tend to do that a lot. Manage in vCloud director, just like we did out in Germany. Let's not worry about the flash cookies. You know, the web client requires flash. Same thing is going to come up again. I select the gateway, right click, select gateway services, and my dialog is going to come up for gateway. I look at the VPN. As you can see, I have a VPN up and running. It is to Germany. This is the public IP address of the local Virginia gateway. That is the public IP address of the peer German gateway. This is the private network in Virginia behind the Virginia gateway, and this is the peer network in Germany behind the German gateway. If I click on that, I basically get the same thing I showed you in Germany as well. Establish a VPN to a remote network. Now, if you were actually setting up a new VPN, let's see how that is done. I click on add, and let's look at some of the options. So I have to key in a name, a description. I will enable this. Let's look at this option or this drop down here, because these options were not available before. So I can set up VPNs within a network in this same organization, or I can set up a VPN to a network in another organization, or a remote network. I selected remote network because I wanted to show you between two geographically dispersed sites how this would be done. So A network in another organization would also would also work. Okay, and again you have to specify the local endpoint. It kind of knows the local endpoint. That's the name it has for that IP. You have to key in your public IPs, and the shared keys right here. I do a show key, then I copy and paste. I leave the MTU as 1500 and leave that be. It's a very straightforward way of actually setting up VPNs, and it works quite well. The only thing to watch out for is that this status green, it takes a while. Obviously it depends on the latency of the network and the bandwidth and so on and so forth, but still, regardless, it takes, every time that I have done this, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes. So you need a lot of patience to make sure that this is up and running. And if after about half an hour to 1 hour, if this has not come up, and you are absolutely sure your configuration is actually correct, and what I would recommend is I would actually go to the gateway and see if I could redeploy that. So for example, I would click on this and then select it, and then I would select the redeploy option, which would redeploy the gateway, and then everything would start, or in my case at least has started connecting. So that's one way to kind of push through if you have any of these issues. Of course, if it still doesn't work, you need to contact vCloud Air support. But really, it's pretty straightforward, and I don't think you'll have any issues with this. So to summarize, we looked at VMware vCloud Air, which is VMware's public cloud offering. We also looked at the software technology that underlies VMware vCloud Air, which is the vCloud Director product. And we looked at the use of the vCloud Director user interface as well. Apart from that, we implemented and configured the vCloud Connector node and the vCloud Connector server. We saw that the vCloud Connector works within the classic client and not within the web client. We looked at it and its configuration and its usage within the classic client version 6. We also looked at hybrid cloud operations. We deployed a virtual machine, and we looked at integrating catalogs and so on there as well, all from the convenience of our on-premise vCenter classic client. We then went into the vCloud Director interface and configured a VPN connection between two sites, between the VMware Air site that I have in Virginia as well as the one in Germany. And we saw that it was reasonably easy to configure that connection and have it up and running. We also learned that the VPN connection takes some time to come up, and if the configuration is known to be correct, sometimes redeploying the edge appliance or the edge gateway appliance does the trick. So with that, we now need to look forward to our next video, which is managing vSphere 6 advanced storage, a very exciting topic, and I hope to see you there.